Thanks for coming out today. Here we are at the Kennedy's Garden Green Expo, sponsored by the North-South River Watershed Association. It's been 8 to 10 to 12 years I've been invited to come and talk about different aspects of growing and even organic growing. And so my name is John Belber, and I work at Holly Hill Farm in Cohasset. Holly Hill Farm is a certified organic flower, vegetable, and herb farm, a little bit of fruit, and a lot of fruit, actually, if you count tomatoes and peppers and eggplant as fruit, which we do, although the plant is a vegetable plant, I suppose. It's also an educational farm, meaning we do a lot of teaching on the farm and off the farm. Like here today, doing a workshop presentation, was doing some seed exchange at the Paul Pratt Library in Cohasset the other day, did a workshop at Untold Brewery in Scituate. So we get out and about a little bit to bring sort of the farm to people who are unable to get to the farm. But the farm is open every day of the year, dawn to dusk. On Saturdays year-round, the farm is open with organically grown vegetables, flowers, and herbs, although not too many flowers right now, but plenty of vegetables coming out of the ground, out of the greenhouse ground. And I was there today actually harvesting some spinach that had overwintered and had done a nice job of sort of hanging out throughout the winter time to be able to be picked today, and I'll explain a little bit of that aspect of it. And Holly Hill Farm sits on land that is in Quonahasset, the native indigenous Wampanoag word for long rocky shore, Quonahasset. A lot of rocks and a lot of shore up there in Cohasset, maybe 12 minutes away up the road. Just like Scituate gets its name derived from Scituate, the cold brook that runs through the center of town. These are all connections to the folks who used and learned and lived on the land before people started settling and taking over the land. So Holly Hill Farm is part of the White family, and before that, that unceded land was part of the Wampanoag history. So we're trying to continue growing there, trying to grow with respect to the environment in terms of what it can give to us and what we can take from it, and also to try to give back. That's sort of our mission, as it is, I would hope, with almost every gardener, right? You are asking for your flowers to grow, your ranunculus, your flowers and herbs all to grow, and you ask a lot of that soil, and you then can maybe give back. It'll give to you. You can come along and cut and get what you need, and then you can also give back to it. So I'm going to talk about regenerative farming, which is a form of organic farming, you could say. It's in line with organic farming, and it just goes a little bit further to make sure we're keeping the mission and the effort of working in concert with the environment. Agroecological is another phrase that I'm hearing more and more about, the agriculture of the food growing, the vegetable growing, and the flower growing, and then with a mindfulness to the ecology, right, to the study of the earth there. So I'm going to start a little bit. Farming and growing is year-round. It can be. If you think about springtime, putting those seeds in to sow those seeds. I've got some seed packets here I'm going to go over with you. And then in the summertime, you can cultivate and grow those plants, right? And then in the fall, you can harvest. I'm borrowing a little bit here from William Cullis Williams. And then in the wintertime, you can rest. The rest time that we're coming out of right now, as it is the Garden Green Expo with the equinox at 11:06 next Tuesday. The equinox right now upon us, it's time to sort of get busy again. So we have to think a lot about how we are interacting with the earth at these different times of the year so that we can get to our growing, whether you're on a garden deck outside your home or a windowsill of an apartment building or in a field, if you happen to have some farmland or field space or garden beds. It really doesn't take much to put that mentality of today of regenerative farming into your growing space. So I'm going to start sort of, I guess, in late fall a little bit, okay? So I brought some compost today, And maybe if you're feeling the urge to get into the mood of growing at this time of year, which is probably why you're here at the Gardening Green Expo. This is compost we've been making at Holly Hill, and we have a table with information I can share with you later on here at the Kennedys. Start with some compost that we've been making at the farm. We make it year-round. I collect food scraps and coffee grounds from different restaurants and organizations. There's a lot of food scraps and coffee grounds being generated. I don't have the Dunkin' Donuts account, but there's a lot of byproduct of the food and beverage industry, and we've just got a little teeny corner market on that. We've gotten to a point here with Holly Hill Farm and the Friends of Holly Hill Farm, which is the nonprofit that leases the land. Our nonprofit has an arrangement with some of these businesses and coffee shops where they will actually kindly pay us for the service of my coming around and picking up buckets. So it's a cost for them. It's a community connection for them. And we are providing a trash service for them, right? They could put their wastes into the dumpster where trash gets hauled away. Do you know where trash is hauled away to in the South Shore here? We've got, you still in Weymouth? Weymouth trash or Cohasset trash or Situate trash. There's curbside pickup that some places do. But the trash that the municipalities are picking up are taking that trash down to West Wareham. And it's no longer put into a landfill, as the Widow Walks golf course here in Situate is on the old landfill, from what I understand. But the trash is now burned. And poof, that trash goes up into the environment, which is what kids and I talk about as no bueno, right? Not very good for the environment. So we're going to reduce some of that. Again, we're not solving the problems of the world. We're just trying to intercept and divert some of that trash. And so we go to these places, and it might be a place like Wellspring in Hull, where I'm delivering produce through a teen program I have and a volunteer program where we're growing produce to deliver to a place like Wellspring, which is a food pantry, food distribution center in Hull. There's also the Weymouth Food Bank, part of the South Shore Food Bank. Situate has a food pantry. Cohasset has a food pantry. Hingham has a food pantry. You get the idea. This morning I delivered some produce to a place in Weymouth. There were easily 100 people outside waiting for produce. Now, I'm not under any false understanding that we're going to provide produce for all those hundreds of people each week, but we are going to lend a little bit of our organic produce there. And it comes down to what are we able to grow, what are we able to provide. So through the act of compost, I'm collecting food waste and coffee grounds and other ingredients. Also on the farm, we have 3 beautiful goats, lovely rescue donkey, some chickens who give us eggs when they are feeling so inclined, and then still chickens there at Magical Moon? Just move them on. Yeah, it's a time for them to, anytime's a good time for them to start laying their beautiful multicolored eggs, if you have multicolored chickens, Aracanas. So we do gather some manure products as well from the farm. So not many of you might have access to four-legged creatures who give you manure, but that's a great thing to add into our compost pile. And this compost we make it by hand, and we're able to hand and shovel, I should say. And we are turning and mixing it, and so that we get a nice product. And we like it to be certified organic. So certified organic compost means that we've taken the temperature with a big long thermometer, and it's over 131 degrees for 3 days in a row. 2 weeks ago, it was 140 degrees, a recent pile. We have a good recipe of leaves and food scraps and that bit of manure from the animals. So once that compost is made, and we do that a lot year-round, as I said, but the reason I wanted to start in the fall is because the compost that we make in the fall, it may not always heat up to 131 degrees. So when the Bay State certifiers come by and say, let me look at your records here, are all your records, meaning that you're using all organic seeds, check. Are you using all certified organic compost? Check. If compost did not heat up and not become certified organic by the state rules, right, our own little version of MCAS that we have to take, then that is just considered organic matter. Compost is an organic process, and so if it doesn't heat up, we could still take that and put it on in the fall. We put it on in the fall legally because we're not harvesting for 120 days. So if we put it on the fields in the fall, it's one of the most important aspects, and our main laser focus of regenerative farming happens in the fall. Because most of our farming that we're doing at Holly Hill is winding down in the fall and narrowing into the greenhouses. We have 4 or 5 hoop houses, right? Plastic, domed, not really domed, high tunnels, right, that you can walk into with garden beds in the ground there. They do not have heat inside them from propane or gas or oil or wood or coal, of course. We're off of coal farming these days. I don't think we were ever on coal farming. So it's heated just by the sun. And these greenhouses in wintertime, actually in late October, November, we're setting in all kinds of chards and parsley and celery and kale and arugula and lettuce. These are hardy spinach. These are good hardy greens that can handle the winter that is coming. Be it mild, be it extreme, whatever the climate is going to give us, we're putting in these hardy green plants into our greenhouses. But the open fields, and we're farming on about 2 acres actually of intense growing fields. I say intense because of the way we are dealing with these garden beds, which I'll speak to more so about how regenerative farming plays a role into that. So we're making all this compost. Not all of it heats up to certified standards, but we're putting that onto the fields in the fall. Do you know why we're putting all this organic matter? We could even take the manure, skip the compost ever, just put the manure on the fields. We will often go to the beach and get a whole bunch of seaweed, which the town of Scituate said, okay, years ago, and they haven't said otherwise, so I know there's a break in the seawall by the lighthouse, and I will go and grab a whole bunch of buckets of seaweed to put onto the fields. Hey, Samantha, do you know why it is that we are putting all this organic matter, this mulch, it could be salt marsh hay, if we're allowed to take that off, and leaves? You know why we're taking all that stuff and putting it onto the fields in the fall? Fertilize, yeah, it's slowly going to turn into a fertilizer. It could slowly decompose. It's also going to protect and enrich the soil. So that's really essential to us because we rely on that soil to grow our wide varieties of vegetables, flowers, and herbs. And I won't name them all tonight, but today in terms of the lettuces and the arugulas and the beets and the potatoes and the tomatoes and the kale and the Jerusalem artichokes and the ginger I'm going to plant this year and turmeric and all these different varieties of plants that need all different things. They all need good, healthy soil, right? We all have a need to have access, just like someone in a line at the food pantry, to access to healthy food. I may be getting over my Dorito addiction, but I know that I've got to have, and I know that I need to have my fruits and vegetables and balanced food so I can be nice and strong and healthy and not rely essentially on the ever-tasting addictive Doritos. So I'm working through it. So plants are the same way. They don't need those chemicals or those equivalent of Doritos in terms of chemicals and sprays that are synthetic fertilizers. And some, sadly, are sold here, even though there's a lot of great organic products. It'd be great if every wonderful garden center was able to provide complete organic, all-natural materials rather than feeding, literally, our sensation and idealized success with chemicals and synthetic fertilizers. So try to be as natural and healthy as possible for ourselves, what we're intaking, to be strong, happy, living human beings, as we might feed to our animals, and as we might feed to our soil so that it can grow these good, healthy, happy plants. So we're putting a lot of these materials down in the fall, organic composts that we have made, organic matter, as I mentioned, the manures and the seaweed and leaves, and all that is a fertilizer, as you said, and also protects the soil, because in the winter, when the winds do come, or the rains, or the blizzards, or the snow, or the movements of wintertime actions, some of that soil can go away. Now, less likely maybe if you've got a garden bed, say it's a 4-foot by 8-foot garden bed, you might not lose soil off of there. But today, just this morning, to get practiced and ready for today, I moved some leaves aside that I had put on a garden bed, and that soil was quite lovely and workable. Granted, we had rain 10 days ago for multiple days. This past week we had gray, but lots of sunshine, so things are warming up. But I pulled out a few. Did I save them? A few samples. Some cilantro was tucked under the leaves today, and some red-veined sorrel, quite delicious, that had been under the leaves and protected. Those are not perennials that come back every year. They are hardy annuals. And if given the protection and the time and the space and the weather patterns, then you might find some good surprises there. So, garlic is planted in the fall. That gets a lot of seaweed and leaves. That's starting to emerge. It's been emerging for over a month because what happened in December was the start of winter, around the 21st, right? And then the next day, full-on winter. However, the days lengthen a little bit. So this is all not brand new news to you, I hope. But a nice reminder that, things are going to start increasing in terms of daylight. Plants are going to start responding to that. It's going to be cold and chilly, and yet at the same time, plants are going to be excited. That's why garlic is coming up like a daffodil or a crocus or a snowdrop or a tulip, right? They're starting to emerge from the soil because of the lengthening days of sunlight. And no matter what the time people do with changing clocks, it's still increasing daylight every day. So we want to make sure that we are providing as many nutrients as we can to the farm fields and the garden beds. In addition to a fertilizer and a slowly decomposing material on those garden beds, it's also serving as a home and a habitat for all these beneficial microbial organisms that are down in the soil. So worms and bugs and insects that are good for the soil have a nice warm home there. Sometimes it can turn into a little home, as I discovered a couple weeks ago, to baby bunnies. So in amongst my little leaves and straw, which I brought today, I discovered a little bunny nest, which is adorable and cute and sweet. However, if allowed to live and prosper inside the fenced area where we're growing food for delivery, then they'll get more out of the garden than I will. So I'm willing to share. So I just would relocation program, just move them, find them equal opportunity housing elsewhere outside of the garden area. We like to think that at the farm and maybe in your gardens, there is room for all of these immigrant animals. I just need to find a place to where we can share and continue to grow. So it's a really wonderful benefit to feed that soil in the fall with this organic matter, with compost, and cover as much as we can with leaves. Leaves are pretty free. They fall pretty regularly come autumn. That's a weather pattern that hasn't changed too much. And there are some landscapers we work with at Holly Hill who will bring their truckloads of leaves, and we are happy to accept them and put them onto the fields. We also use them to make compost. It's a great source of carbon and a great discovery on a day like today when the sun is shining. You can move those leaves apart and see rich, healthy soil with a few little greens in there and some soil that's ready to be worked. On some of these seed packets, there's a great phrase in the back talking about directly sow the seeds as soon as the soil can be worked. Right? It's a great phrase because you want to get your hands dirty. Maybe you do or don't, gardeners, but it's a time to really put your seeds in. And I mentioned those hardy greens earlier in the greenhouse in the fall. It's the same right now. I'm putting in some cilantro and some beets and took a chance on some carrots and kales and arugulas and stuff, so they can really have a chance to respond to this warming sun and extended sunshine that's happening. Another thing in fall, as we continue to be back in the mode, or I am right here with you today, of autumn, is a little bit earlier, maybe in September or late August, if you have space and you want to care for your soil, put down some cover crop. So cover crop is a variety of products, seeds that you can put in there, like rye and peas and vetch and oats. These are seeds that you can just literally broadcast, spread them all out onto the field or onto your garden bed, or even in your little planter. I brought a little planter today, right? So that you can just have those seeds take off in late August, September, October, and grow and hold on into your soil. Peas actually are called a nitrogen fixer, right? So they pull nitrogen from the environment and put it down into the root structures and help feed and hold on to that soil. Again, if you want to protect your soil and take care of your soil, which a regenerative farmer and a regenerative gardener that you all are going to become, right, or continue to be, is going to help make sure that you can feed that soil and keep it in place, keep it there. I talked to somebody yesterday who's like, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of garden pots. I emptied all of them in the fall to turn them upside down. Now I'm ready for spring to buy more soil. Well, yes, you could buy soil. There's places here that sell all kinds of potting soil. We sell potting soil in different mixes at the farm. We make some soil with some compost and some sand and some vermiculite. That's an expense and a bit of a heavy workload, which you can do. And at the same time, if you're able to keep some of your soil from your pots to reuse again next year, then that'll be helpful. So now we are in next year. So how do I deal with a pot that had some soil from last fall? How do I deal with a field or a garden bed that had soil last year? Well, think about or look back at your notes, if you took notes, as to what was growing last year. Was there a nice big happy tomato plant in your pot that was growing wonderful big sun gold cherry tomatoes? Or was there a whole bunch of beans that were wrapped around maybe a single pole or something? What were those plants doing in your garden bed or your pot? How much do you think they were taking nutrients out of there? If it was a tomato, tomatoes are in the ground for a very long time, or in the pot for a very long time, right? We set them out in mid to late May or a little earlier if we're feeling chancy and risky. And those tomatoes are in there, and then they are growing and getting bigger, and then come late July, August, you start to pick and enjoy your tomatoes. Maybe that goes on and continues until October. That's a long time for a plant to be in your soil. Not to mention if you got a whole row of tomatoes or whatever space you have devoted to tomatoes, those tomatoes are going to deplete the soil. They're going to take the nutrients they need to produce the tomatoes. Same with eggplant and peppers and everything else. All plants are going to take and consume up nutrients that are in the soil. So you've got to figure out how to, I encourage you to figure out how to replenish and to regenerate, which is why that phrase is used for regenerative farming. How can you add back and continue to naturally, in a healthy way, feed your soil? Lettuces, salad mix. I brought some salad mix here today, which I tend to sow in straight, not narrow rows, or sometimes I'll broadcast a whole garden bed with a whole carpet of salad mix. That's about 45 to maybe 60 days of activity, right? The seeds are growing, they're sprouting, if it's a Yankee blend mix here from High Mowing Organic Seeds, you come along and cut after about 35, 40 days, make a nice green, purple mixed salad. It's terrific. Then you take that lettuce and you wash it and you eat it, and then it'll regrow, new leaves, and you come along and cut again. And maybe you have a third chance to come along and cut those greens. Then maybe you're done with that salad mix. Maybe it might want to bolt and make flowers and seeds. But you're pretty much ready to move on from that salad mix. So that's only maybe 60 days or so. That's 2 months. You could take that salad mix out and put something else into that garden bed. Every time we're taking a crop out of the ground and we're done with it, right? It did some depletion of the soil. So tomatoes a long time, salad mix a shorter time. Radishes, even less a time, maybe 35 days. So We always try to add compost into our soil each time it's called flipping a bed, right? Each time we're changing it over from the radish or the salad or the arugula or the tomatoes into something else. We always are trying to add some compost because that salad mix or that crop took some nutrients from the soil. So even if it's a garden pot or a garden bed or a farm field, you want to try to replenish and add on back into your soil. It's not mandatory, but it certainly helps because you can get a lot of success if you're able to keep your soil healthy and well stocked with the energy and things that it needs. Another thing that we're doing these days, as we are in spring and starting to move those leaves aside, is when we're putting in crops or seeds, and there are leaves on the garden bed that I put on in the fall, or even some seaweed. You move those aside so you can plant, add some compost and plant. There's a chance to double use those leaves as well and continue to feed and hold on to the soil. So when it comes time, maybe in early May, maybe, or let's say maybe early mid-April, I might put in some potatoes and some onions. Maybe some of those leaves can go back once I've transplanted or put seeds right into the ground. I don't know if you planted potatoes before, but it's not only fun to dig up potatoes, but it's fun to plant potatoes because you have a potato that's not the true seed, but you put that into the ground once it's developed its eyes, right? And it sprouts. You set the potato in at about 12 inches apart, and I might go ahead and keep some of those leaves there and tuck those back in around. Continued mulch, continued effort to keep soil nice and moist, right? I will water, of course, but I'll make sure that I'm trying to keep all those ingredients around me, those renewable resources, as deciduous trees do tend to grow, form their leaves, turn colors. People drive many miles to look at turning colored leaves, and then they drop to the ground, and they're a great source to give right back into the environment, which is similar to the compost that I've talked about, right? The compost is taking all those materials that I talked about earlier, coffee grounds, fruit scraps, and things, and recycling it right back into nature, right back into our growing area, our growing spaces. The reason I'm sifting this compost here, before I talk more about spring planting, is I put some wood chips in there, I put some leaves, some of the eggshells, the occasional avocado sticker that remains, telling me it was grown in Mexico, hopefully with properly paid people taking care of the avocado trees, or Ojai, California, wherever the avocado was growing. This sticker is going to tell me, not only the checkout person, bloop, what the PLU was, but PLU, I learned, is price lookup, the PLU number on a sticker. So I'm sifting so that the really good stuff, the finished compost, can go right down into this bucket, and maybe we'll draw a name, and a lucky person can take home the compost I've been sifting here. It's very zen, very nice to be able to have this available. Oh, there's an oyster shell. Nice oyster shell full of calcium. I will collect those when I go to Mulaney's Seafood, when I collect some of their fish products, right? That's another indigenous practice which I am not seeking to appropriate, but to admire and repeat, which is the bearing of fish byproducts can go right back into the compost making, into feeding the soil, into slow decomposition there. So again, using our local renewable resources with an understanding that they're going to give right back into this cycle of growing and appreciation. Something else about the fish products that we're using when we're planting spring crops and summer crops is fish emulsion. And I don't know if behind our photographer there's a fish byproduct label there or not, but yes, there is. Neptune's Harvest behind you. Good job, Chris Kennedy, for selling Neptune's Harvest up in Gloucester. So we could be doing a whole bunch of fish byproduct production down here on the South Shore, but right now we're going to rely on the North Shore up in Gloucester, where they've got the Neptune's Harvest. So for those who are in the habit of adding some sprays and liquid fertilizers to their planting and growing, I'd put a couple drops of Neptune's Harvest fish emulsion, which is the liquid byproduct of the fishing industry, and put that right into my watering can or a water sprayer if I walk with a backpack water sprayer. Put some fish emulsion in there because that's going to be another good source of nutrients right down into the area at the roots where the plants are. The plants are the big feeders, right? They're down under the ground and they're getting ready to feed off of that soil. If you can enrich that soil, I would suggest some Neptune's Harvest, which is available here today for purchase from Kennedy's, which is great. So for planting, a bit more on planting. These seeds, I brought a couple seed packets. I did not bring any, and I brought some Yankee salad mix here. In fact, do you know where I got this Yankee blend salad mix? I said high mowing, yes. I also put some other Yankee blend salad mix in here. And it's not really meant to be a trick question, but I got it from some old Yankee blend salad plants. So last year, we grew some lettuce, and at a school, we picked some of that lettuce, and then I think it was the Wampatuck School in Scituate. And then June came, and students left and came back and went away and came back and enjoyed summer. And some of that lettuce said, well, I'm going to keep on growing. And it grew and made some wonderful flowers. And some of those flowers were pollinated, and it made some beautiful little seed pockets, so seed pods. So I took some of those seed pods and I sprinkled that in here to add to my Yankee blend salad mix. So I'd like to know from where seeds come. So high mowing organic seed is one seed source. Chris carries a bunch of, I think they're out in Colorado, organic seed that organic seed farmers, I believe, have gathered and packaged up and sent here for sale. I started ordering this year a little bit from a new BIPOC-owned seed collective in southern Maryland, Ujamaa Seeds. So they're telling a bit more seed stories about how those seeds are passed down and carried on, open pollinated seeds to be used and reused again and appreciated. So I've got some sorrel and some carrots, some collards. I'm trying to diversify a little bit from where I'm getting seeds to make sure that they are, to maybe help continue to write stories, to learn the stories of these seeds, and then to track them a bit. So part of the gardening and farming growing work that I'm trying to do at Holly Hill, and the farm teachers, Zach is here today at our table, and the farmers at Holly Hill is to see what does well and how things are growing. So we keep records of what we're planting, right? But we can also keep records of how they grew, and not just, we got 47 pounds of spinach on this day or this week, and we got X number of tomatoes from this plant and things. There is that aspect of it. We're a nonprofit, and yet we are still focused on some capitalistic themes. At the same time, we are also trying to use these seeds and appreciate these plants and keep track of how they're growing so that we can maybe save some more seeds for the following year. Yeah, Donna?
How do you store them?
It's tricky, and we don't do a lot, but we do some. So for right now, we have beautiful old barns at Holly Hill Farm, which date back to the 1700s, and they are lovely, and it's kind of a little bit romantic to walk into an old barn, imagine the animals that used to live there, or the birds you might swallow in there and call it home. But it's not a good place to save seeds because of the temperatures, and they're not insulated and protected. So they tend to get very cold at night, like the outdoors in winter, and then get warm again during the day, or not get warm again during the day. And so the long-winded answer is I store a lot of seeds at home. Farmers will store some things in their farmhouse that they live in. There are currently 3 farmers living at Holly Hill Farm, and they are storing some seeds inside. But mostly, some I'll let dry on the vine. So beans in their pods are great to dry, and those dried beans are terrific for soaking and cooking and eating. They're also good for saving. So if they dry on the vine, getting ready for the delightful Russ Cohen coming up next. We've got some dried beans that I will then take off the vine and dry at home in a cool, dark space, away from the cats.
So not in the refrigerator?
Not usually. There are some that need freezing, actually, right? Some that process to go through. A lot of native seeds, I believe, maybe Russ can help me with that, need to have a frozen state like that. But the refrigerator is probably a little too cold. I just do a cool, dark place. And I'm trying, like this year I increased. I've got some amaranth I saved, beans, sunflowers, so pretty, the seeds on top of those sunflower heads. Some tomato seeds, having the tomato flesh out and become gelatinous and rotten and not as delightful as a BLT tomato, but let those, and then you separate the seeds out and let them dry. I've also saved some carrot seeds. Has anybody saved carrot seeds? Do you know where they are besides in a garden center near you? In the bloom. In the bloom, right. So where are the carrots? They're the roots in the ground, exactly right. Orange, purple, yellow, red sometimes, lovely varieties of rainbow carrots in the ground. Then come up the stems and the carrot tops, right? I have nephew and niece who are redheaded, but carrot tops that are at the top of the carrots there. And what do you mean by the bloom? Just explain that further.
Flowers.
It flowers. It actually flowers. What's that?
It looks almost like parsley flowers.
Parsley flowers, dill, Queen Anne's lace, those are all cousins. We are relatives all. And it does not happen in the first year. So many of you gardeners might know about the biennial status of carrots. So I was at a school last week, and there are about 15 to 20 carrots still in the ground, left there purposely from last fall. It was painful because I love growing carrots, waiting for them to grow. The little boy waits in the carrot story about will it come up, will it come up, will it come up? And we left carrots in the ground there. Again, they're holding soil. They were fine. We had plenty of carrots to share and eat once we washed them off, usually. And then we left a whole bunch in the ground, 15 to 20 carrots. And now, with springtime, they are ready to take off and start to grow new tops, wherein the carrot roots will not be good and edible this spring because the plant is putting its energy into another aspect of its stage of life and growth, which is to become new greenery with flowers that will be pollinated to make carrot seeds that resemble a parsley flower or Queen Anne's lace flower. So I did save some of those, and it's great to show to anybody. I'm sorry I didn't bring it today, but to show this beautiful, long, beautiful, tall carrot top with its little seeds at the top and an old dead carrot at the bottom. So dead carrot, yes, live seeds ready to grow again. Be mindful of Russ's start time at 1. The last thing I want to show you here, hey Sue, is an example of what it is that I was talking about, which is I brought this from the farm. Oh, did I? Yeah, I saw your eyes. Woo! Making more work for our kind camera crew here. Leaves and straw here. I didn't put hay down there because hay has seed, which is great for a horse. There's some rhyme about that.
Can you put salt marsh hay?
You can. I'm weary of where to get it. Yeah. I don't want to deplete the salt marshes. Right. Having taken seaweed from the beaches, I realize I'm guilty of taking. However, there seems to be a lot of seaweed, and maybe I should watch myself because if we all now meet again next fall at the break in the seawall and take all the seaweed from the beach, there'd be none left. So my dad says everything in moderation, so we'll try for moderation. So I haven't done too much salt marsh hay. This is old spent hay that was actually used at some fundraiser thing nearby, or someone put it out in Halloween time to be festive and farmy. So I got some spent hay that was not good. And then underneath here is this soil that's been sitting there all winter long, ready to work, even in a pot, which tends to be frozen for a longer amount of time, I'm confident that there's good, happy, healthy soil in here. And I knew that last year this had some eggplants. I devoted these black plastic pots to a single eggplant. So I'm not going to do eggplants again this year. I'm going to rotate and do something else in here. And maybe I'll do a combination of some radish seeds, which don't need a lot of depth, and maybe some peas that could go up, right? That's some nice companion planting to really use this space as best I can. And this has done a very nice job of just being there all winter long. It might have been a little higher up, and some of the wind came and blew some of that away, and yet here it remains. I can take this off when I'm ready for planting, put it into the compost, put it onto another garden bed to continue to be a host site for soil that is going to be growing a great number of things for me, I hope, this year, and for the community, if people are coming to the farm to see what it is we're growing. So I'm going to wrap up. Are there some questions and ideas here? And Russ has got a great video. Maybe native seedlings, Russ? Or wild edibles?
That's all I'm talking about.
Okay.
One trick pony.
All right. A very good trick that you got going on. Yes?
So I have a question. So your pot, you grew eggplant in it
Last year.
When you go to plant in it this year,
Correct.
you'll still use the same soil. Will you incorporate compost? in there?
Absolutely. Thank you for, yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll add compost. Hi. I'll add compost right in there. I'll integrate it. Integration now, separation never, right? I'll mix it right in there and put in different seeds and plants. I suppose I could do eggplant, yes.
If anybody has any questions for you, he's got a table in the greenhouse, so we can get Russ mic'd up.
Thank you so much.